welcome to another Math Mayhem with Mr. Ballot. Today we're going to be discussing IQR, or interquartile range. And what IQR has to deal with is really about variability. And it shows you how spread out a data set is, meaning does my data consist of a small amount of numbers, like from let's say 1 to 5? Or is my data really spread out where I have numbers from 1 to 100, right? So that's what IQR really helps us out with. It helps us determine what is the variability of my data set. So we have some steps here to explain to you how to do IQR, or how to solve an IQR problem that we're going to go through, and then we're going to go through and actually find the IQR of a data set right here. But first, the steps. So the first step that you're going to want to do for IQR is you're going to organize your data from least to greatest. And we seem to say this a lot when it comes to statistics, that we always want to order our data from least to greatest. So that should be your first step in anything you do with data, because it's going to help you be able to pull out specific things from that data set when it's in order from least to greatest. So that should be your first step for everything, but especially for IQR, you have to do it for IQR. Step 2 is you're going to find the median. Okay, you're going to find the median of the data set, just the regular old median, which we know how to do. That's the middle number, right? So you cross out your smallest and your largest number until you get to that middle number. And remember, if you get to 2 middle numbers, you find the average of those 2 numbers. Okay, so you find the median. After you find the median, that median splits your data. It gives you a lower half and an upper half. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to then find the median of the lower half. Okay, so again, you're doing that same process, but now you're only working with the first set of numbers. Okay, that median kind of acts like a wall. Right? It draws a line from your upper to your lower. So now you're finding the median of the lower half. After you do that, now you're going to find the median of the upper half. Okay? So now you found the median of your lower half. You have that number. Now you're going to find the median of the upper half. And you're going to have that number. The final step is now you're going to find the range from the upper to the lower half. Meaning you're going to take those 2 medians now, right? You have your lower half median and your upper half median, and you're going to find the range. And if you remember from another video, what the range is, well, the range is your maximum minus your minimum. So when you're finding the range of this upper half and lower half, you're going to take the upper half and you're going to subtract the lower half, and that is your IQR. That is your interquartile range. And we're going to show you that here. But really importantly, when we're talking about IQR and why we find these things, if we have a large IQR, right? Let's say my IQR is something like 50. That means I have a large range of data. That means the variability, how spread out my data is, that means it's very high, my variability. That means my data is spread out amongst a large amount of numbers. If I have a low IQR, let's say my IQR is like 3 or 2, right? That means my data is not spread out. That means it's between 3 numbers, right? It could be 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So the larger your IQR, the larger the variability. The smaller the IQR, the smaller the variability, okay? So if I was to ask you, if I had one data set with an IQR of 26 and one with an IQR of 8, well, which set would be more variable? Which had more variability? Well, it would be the one with the IQR of 26, right? Because it's a higher IQR, which means there's higher variability there. Okay, so just keep that in mind and why we actually find these things. So what we're going to do is let's actually find the IQR of a data set here. Let's say I have this. This is a data of, I don't know, the points scored by different players on a basketball team, right? And I want to find out, well, what is my IQR? How spread out is this data? So we're going to follow our steps. Okay, so let's look here. Right, my first step says to to order them from least to greatest. Well, I already did that for us, right? I have them in order. I have 8, 8, 12, 14, 17, 24, 24, 26, 28, 27, 28. They're in order least to greatest, so I can check that guy off. Find the median. So now we're going to do that. We're going to find our median. I'm going to do this in pink, and I'm going to use X's because I don't want to cross out the number because we're going to need them when we're trying to find our IQR. So I'm going to cross out my greatest and my least, and then my greatest and my least, greatest and least, greatest and least, greatest and least, and I'm left with one number, all right, 17. This guy here is my median. Okay? So now remember what we said. The median splits this guy into two sides. Now I have my lower half, which is this 8 to 14. Notice how I didn't count the median. Okay, again, this median acts as a wall, so it's almost like you could get rid of it. So it's like not in the data set anymore. Okay, so my lower half is this 8 to 14, and then my upper half is this 24 to 28. So now I'm going to use blue, and I'm going to find the median of my lower half. Oh, let me make my check mark. So I did step 2. Done. Step 3 says find the median of the lower half. Well, let's do that. I'm going to do it in blue. So I'm going to, again, I'm just working in my lower half here. I'm going to cross out my maximum, my minimum, my maximum, and my minimum. And here is my lower half's median. And what you'll learn in the future video, we actually call this guy Q1. Okay, or quartile 1. But for now, I'm just going to name this guy my median of lower. Okay? So now I did step 3. I could check that guy off. Step 4, find the median of the upper half. Okay, so now I'm going to do that, and let's do that in red. So I'm going to, again, working just my upper half from 24 to 28. So I'm going to cross out my largest, smallest, largest, smallest, and I end up with this 26, which I'll call the median of the upper. Okay, so I did step 4. I found the median of the upper half. Now my final step says to find the range from the upper to the lower half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my upper half, which is 26, and I'm going to find the range of it and 8. And again, when we find range, we subtract. So we're going to subtract the upper half from the lower half. 26 minus 8, which we know to be 18. So my IQR here is 18, right? And when we talk about IQRs, and like I said, and you know what, I'm even going to make that note here, is that a large IQR equals high variability, and a small IQR equals low variability. And when I talk about large IQR, so like 18 here, I wouldn't consider that large, right? And when you look at our data, you can see that because we're really only going from 8 to 28. It's really only 20 numbers. So it's not that large of variability. So when I speak of large IQR, I'm looking for something that's like the range would be 50 or more, right? If I have, and that's 50 plus. So like 50 plus on your IQR, that's a pretty large IQR. Anything else is really Not that. I mean, if you have like 45, I would consider that pretty high too. But when you find IQR, it's going to be fairly obvious if it's high or low variability, right? It's never going to be like 47 and you're going to have to be like, oh, is that high or low? It could be low, it could be high. It's going to be fairly obvious. It's going to be like an 18, it's going to be like 102 or something like that, where it'll be fairly obvious to tell. So I can even kind of get rid of this guy, because you don't really need to know that. Okay? But that's how you find IQR. Again, order from least to greatest, find your median of the lower half, median of the upper half, subtract them, find your IQR. Okay? If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, just put them below in the comments. But until next time, have a good day, guys.